You know, when I first started practicing law, the managing partner of my law firm had a sign on his credenza that said, "Sue the bastard." Well, that's what I want to talk to you about today could Daniel Penny sue the bastards? Hi, I'm Dr. Ken Henry, and this is Conservative Commentary. Hey, I'd like to ask you a favor before we begin our discussion. If you wouldn't mind, I would ask you to please go over to youtube.com at Kenneth J. Henry and take a look at our other videos. And if you find value in this video, give us a like and comment and share the video with others and subscribe to the channel. Now let's talk about suing the bastards. There has been some talk by Daniel Penny's attorneys about potentially suing Alvin Bragg for malicious prosecution. Hey, I'm all for it. This Bragg needs to be brought to justice, needs to be introduced to the justice system from the other side, and not just from where he's been abusing it. So should Penny sue him? Well, let's talk about what it would take to win a case for malicious prosecution. First of all, there would have to be an outcome in the plaintiff's favor. Here, Penny would be the plaintiff, and certainly a not guilty verdict is an outcome in his favor. So we can check that box off of the requisites for being successful in a suit for malicious prosecution. But there are other elements that go into the formula. The second would be damages. Well, certainly, there's no question that Daniel Penny's reputation has been damaged in the community and beyond. And you can just see that in the reactions in the news reports and so forth. And he's also suffered monetary damages. You know, his cost of defense had to be astronomical for a trial the length that he endured, and time off from work and not being able to earn a living as well. And there's potential future monetary damages because of the injury to his reputation that would lead to potential damages there. So we can check off the box about damages. But there's a bigger mountain to climb. Alvin Bragg is cloaked in prosecutorial immunity, which means that a prosecutor cannot be prosecuted for his official acts as long as he's acting in good faith. Now here, Bragg has an indictment from a grand jury, and that indictment would likely cloak him with his immunity. And the other element of the tort of malicious prosecution is moving forward with prosecution without probable cause. And the grand jury indictment would also cover that as well. So I think that even though they are talking about potentially suing his office and Bragg in particular, I'm not sure that would actually work. So we'll stay tuned. We'll see what happens with that. Look at this clip from Penny's lawyers, and we'll come back and talk some more.
The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Daniel Penny speaking exclusively to Fox for the first time since being cleared of all charges.
This, as his defense team tells us, they're considering filing their own lawsuit for malicious persecution. Good for them.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk to Daniel Penny's attorney. Stephen Razor joins us right now. Stephen, congratulations. Good morning to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you as well.
So we saw you yesterday. We were running the video of you and Danny and another attorney at the Stone Street Tavern after his acquittal. I know you've got the attorney-client privilege, but tell us what you guys were talking about. I mean, is there one thing that he said to you that you thought, wow, that's cool?
Well, the relief he felt, and that other attorney, by the way, is Thomas Kniff, partner Razor and Kniff. And, you know, Danny, for us, you know, it became more than just a case, right? So we're trying to take care of Danny and make sure that he's treated fairly in a system that was geared to prosecute him maliciously in a manner in which was not supported by the evidence, and there was other motivations at play here. So Danny's saying that he's relieved. That was the best thing that I could ever hear, because the amount of stress that he's been under for the past year and a half has been tremendous.
You know, Stephen, you're correct. It was a malicious prosecution. But I got to ask you about this lawsuit that y'all may go against him with, because at one point, when they tried to get some consolation charge against Daniel, the jury struck it down. But the judge agreed with you that it wasn't really the right process to go by, but still allowed it to happen.
Yeah, well, he did. I mean, he actually made sure it happened. So for whatever reason, you know, so I can't get into the mind of the judge, right? But what I do know is that it was based on the application of the district attorney's office. And just like Danny said in his interview, it was like they wanted to try and get him on something. They knew they weren't going to be able to get him, so they had to get rid of that top count in order to get to that second count, just in the hopes that maybe they could pull out a win here. And they were unsuccessful, thank God.
Yeah,
You know, I think the difficult thing for me, I think about his family. I'm a mom. I think about his mom, his sisters. So this happens. He's acquitted. He's free. But now there's other lawsuits. The one from Jordan Neely's father, who suddenly appeared out of the woodwork. But you're now considering you're contemplating this malicious prosecution. How does this work? Who exactly are you going? Is this against Alvin Bragg? Who does this actually go against?
Well, it goes against Alvin Bragg for the way in which he handled this case and the ethical lines that were blurred. Yeah, I mean, the medical examiner's office, Chief Graham, for his involvement in this case. I mean, the record was made fairly clear as to the extent of his involvement in what occurred here. You know, he was appointed by Mayor Adams, same political party as Alvin Bragg. There was collusion there. And I mean, the collusion began from the very beginning of this case and all the way through. The district attorney needed the medical examiner and needed the medical examiner to act quickly, and he did just that.
So, first off, how concerned were you after Donald Trump got convicted by this New York jury in a case that no one thought had validity to, including a lot of Democrats? What were you thinking, knowing that you had a case coming up right after that?
Yeah, so that's it's a great point, because to be honest with you, it was scary. And for us, from a defense perspective, we honed in on the most important part of the case was going to be jury selection, because that was going to be the biggest challenge, is to get a fair jury. And you know, from everything that we did and all the steps we took and the advisors that we put in place, it worked out. It really did, but it was close and it was difficult. So that was where the key battle was waged.
But Counselor, you know, people look at you as a criminal defense attorney, but you were in the prosecutor's office before this. How do you feel about the system being the way it is? I mean, when you were a prosecutor, this is not the type of stuff y'all went after. They are allowing the criminals to roam the street, and the civilians that protect the citizens are now the criminals. How do you feel about this system?
Well, that's just it. I mean, and there was some highlights that were put out there quite extensively in regards to this office's practice in not prosecuting crime. And some very serious cases, too, talking about restorative justice and such, which, by the way, in some circumstances, that's a great thing, and it can be. But some brutal cases of an individual who attacked an 80-year-old man, mugging him and punching him and ultimately killing him, and yet you're going to go after full-throated against my client, who you admit did a laudable thing and is a fine young man. despicable.
Sure,
it's despicable.
Stephen, in talking about how a couple of moments ago, in talking about how you may file these lawsuits against Alvin Bragg, medical examiner, you had said there were motivations involved. What were the motivations that those offices did that would, in your estimation, break the law?
Well, listen, it's not necessarily even about breaking the law. It's blurring ethical boundaries and failing to act in the manner in which you are expected because of your office. But the bottom line is a lot of this came out at trial too, and it was clear that there was a fear that if an arrest wasn't made and made very quickly, that there might be rioting in the streets, and that may ultimately look very bad for District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And if that in fact happened, that could affect his reelection. Now, let's keep in mind, we know this is a Democrat stronghold, right? But don't forget, Alvin Bragg has the consideration of the primary. So if he doesn't keep his base happy, he could get primaried, and that's where he's vulnerable.
Wow. He should be. Real quick, Danny Penny, the person that you started to represent a year and a half ago, and the Danny Penny now who's been screamed at, been called a murderer. You could hear the chants in the courtroom every day. How has he changed?
Well, look, he's scarred from this, okay? I mean, it's great. We had a great resolution. But as you know, there's already a lawsuit filed against him. And you know, the timing of it is somewhat suspect as far as the coordination between the district attorney's office and the family attorneys. So you know, Danny will be forever changed. He will always have that fear because they wanted to instill fear, right? So a heightened alertness, let's say, right? So Danny's a strong guy, and he's going to continue with his life. He's going to pursue his degree, and he's going to have a great career. But he'll be forever changed, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that other than to pursue these causes of action, defend them against any slanderous attempts to, to.
What did you think? Some sharp guys, and I'm sure they're considering all their options going forward in an effort to try to help Daniel Penny. Now, what about this guy named Hawk Newsom, the BLM leader in New York? I don't want to say on the air what I'm thinking, but what a waste of DNA. How about that? He stood in the courtroom, and Penny's lawyer cheered when the verdict came in and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You trying to get killed? Get yourself killed?" Out loud where everybody could hear him. And he looked at Penny and told him in a menacing way, "It's a small world." Then he steps outside the courtroom and talks about how black people cannot get justice and how we need to have black vigilantes in America. You know, I wonder if a white man had walked outside a courtroom and said we need to have white vigilantes, what the reaction would have been from the press. But the press has sort of downplayed this. Take a look.
How can you preach love to racists? That got Dr. King killed. How can you promote love to a nation that is built on theft and genocide?
That's right.
What we preach is unity, black unity. Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself. Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Well, I just don't get it. I understand they're upset, but justice was done in this case. Daniel Penny was a hero, and what they don't take into account is several things. A black lady who was on the train platform testified that she thought he was a hero, that he did what she wished someone else may have done, but he did it, that he was a hero, and she felt safer because of him. they don't take into account the fact that an African-American male helped Daniel Penny hold down Jordan when he was holding him on the train station platform. And the other person that helped Daniel Penny was Hispanic. They don't take that into consideration. It's a black-white world with these BLM people, and they are a menace to this society. They don't have a point to make other than they want to be loud, they want to be obnoxious, and they want to take advantage, and they want to color everything with a race crayon. And it's just not so. But Alvin Bragg's problems may not be over because he now has an opponent who has announced her candidacy for Manhattan DA. Her name is, I want to say it correctly, Maud Marin. And she is a longtime public defender and has announced her candidacy as a Republican, which is probably a pretty tough go in Manhattan. But nonetheless, she is running against Bragg, and if the people of Manhattan have a lick of sense, they'll run his ass out of office. Take a look at this clip of Maud Marin on Fox.
Bring in Maud Marin now, running on the Republican side to unseat Bragg as Manhattan District Attorney. Maud, good to have you with us. You have a long career as a trial attorney in New York City, and you would like to be the next DA for Manhattan. What's your reaction to the way that Bragg brought this case, the two charges, and what he hoped would happen apparently did not happen today?
Right. I think a lot of New Yorkers breathed a sigh of relief with this verdict because this was the case that should not have been. Really, it shouldn't have gone to a jury because I think too many New Yorkers have been on the same kind of subway where there's a person who's mentally ill or on drugs or both and is acting in a violent or threatening way. I've been there. I know lots of other New Yorkers have. And what Daniel Penny did was simply not criminal. It's tragic that the person who was, that Jordan Neely, who was so out of control in that moment that he died, and nobody wants him to have died, including Daniel Penny. But he didn't behave in any way that was criminal, and this case should not have been brought.
Yeah, we remember the video of Daniel Penny and his first discussion with police. At that point, he didn't know that the person he had restrained had died afterwards. And he said, I didn't want to injure him. I was just trying to protect the people on that train. And it appears that that's what the jury thought as well. It's interesting that the jury was deadlocked on the first charge and then got through this one fairly quickly today. What's your take on that?
I've been the attorney waiting for a jury to come back many times, and it's stressful, and you can never know exactly what's going on in the jury room. But it's very clear from the police who interviewed Daniel Penny and didn't immediately bring charges, from the eyewitnesses on the subway who said that they felt threatened and they were grateful that he interacted, that the common sense understanding of what happened on the subway that day was not a crime, but it was a young man who had no criminal record, who's been, in service to this country, who was really trying to do the right thing to protect people. And I think the fact that Bragg brought this is a clear indication of his bad judgment.
It was tragic, but the jury decided it was not law-breaking. This is Eric Adams when he was asked if Hochul should remove DA Bragg over the Penny prosecution. Watch.
No, she should not remove DA Bragg's. The people voted for the district attorney. We have a process, and I am totally against using mechanisms to overstep the boundaries of the electeds. And so, no. And we've had great partnership with the district attorney and some of the things that we have done in the city.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, I actually agree with Eric Adams. I don't think you should remove elected officials. If you've been elected into office, you should serve that office, and it is up to the voters to remove Alvin Bragg. It's up to the voters of Manhattan who know that we need to have a different person in the district attorney's office if we're going to have a different result. We need safety, and we need to get rid of Alvin Bragg.
Yeah. A lot of people have seen his prosecutions of President-elect Trump as politicized, bringing cases where the law has not been used in that way, a very novel interpretation. So he's under a lot of pressure, and you would like to replace him. We'll see where that goes. Maud Marin, thank you.
Thank you
very
so much.
Good to have you with us today.
Hey, after looking at all this and considering all this, how about giving us your thoughts in the comments and share them with others? We sure would appreciate it.